Hi, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday Talks with Wendy. I am so sorry I wasn't able to go live. For some reason, it just wasn't allowing me to connect with Facebook today. So I'm going to just record it and post it in afterwards. It is actually about 8 minutes after 11 right now. So it's live for me, but you guys will get the repeat and it's perfectly fine. Today we're going to be talking about emotional eating. I know this is a big one and something that comes up a lot for a lot of people. It's one of those things that, it can be a bit of a touchy subject with some people with regards to their eating because some people are very much willing to sit down and say, okay, yeah, I'm an emotional eater. But there's a lot of people that don't want to go in that direction, don't admit it, are a bit of a closet eaters, people that, eat very, very healthy and on the outside and don't understand that, sometimes when they're feeling very miserable or they're anxious or they're low or sad or lonely or different things like this, that they turn to food and they don't realize that what they're doing is kind of counterintuitive to how they should be living on a healthy basis. So some people have a hard time admitting to that. Other people's are, like I said, are very open to that. And it is something that I deal with quite a bit with people. Um, it's the people that come into my office and say, I eat really good. I drink all my water. I exercise 3 to 5 times a week. I sleep well. I'm doing everything right, but I just can't lose weight and I don't understand why. Understanding that the emotional aspect of food is and how we relate with food is very, very important. Um, because you won't end up losing the weight unless you kind of deal with those underlying issues as first. Before I get further into this topic, I'll let you know that I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a social worker. I have studied extensively with uh, eating psychology, if you want to put it that way, or the eater's mind, or the relationship that people have with food, whatever kind of term you want to call it. Um, and um, and I mean, I've dealt with this myself, so I know totally from my perspective anyways, because everybody's perspective is going to be a little bit different. I know how I feel with regards to it. I've been there, done that kind of situation. I'm very aware of my eating habits. And, I just, because I've done so much research, I've done so many programs with regards to it and educated myself with regards to it. I feel pretty confident in being able to offer you some information with regards to it and um, some advice as well. So with regards to eating emotionally, I mean, from a physical point of view, we kind of always think that there is, I'm just looking at my notes here. I think we always kind of think that there is uh, a physical need when we crave chocolate or we crave dairy. I mean, and sometimes there is and sometimes there isn't. It really is kind of one of those fine lines that and every body is going to be different. So when we hear, or if you feel like sometimes that you're craving chocolate, and that's a lot of what I hear from people, that we are very much chocoholics. We dive into chocolates. Um, we have a hard time getting away from chocolate. We can't say no to it. Usually, and this is from, let's see, Doreen Virtue, who's a PhD, and her book, What Your Food Cravings Mean and How to Overcome Them. In this, and this is what her list, as she says, is when we crave chocolate, we are hungry for love and we're feeling rejected in some way or form or whatever happens to be going on in our lives. And this is why we kind of need that chocolate or want that chocolate or desire or crave it. When we're craving dairy products, this is kind of like an antidepressant kind of food for us. So Choline, so foods that have choline in them would be a little bit more soothing. L-tryptophan is very calming. Um, and sugar and lactose, they give us temporary energy, and creamy textured foods are very comforting to us as well. So when we're craving nuts and crunchy food snacks, salty foods usually mean that the emotional connection with them is that perhaps we're going through some stress, some anger issues, some anxiety. Nuts are usually craving for fun, and we're just looking for something to spice things up a little bit, make things a little nutty. When we're craving liquids, it's usually an up and down energy cycle. So if you're really dehydrated, definitely always before we go towards whatever craving we have, we want to look and take a little bit of water in beforehand, because this could easily be fixed with something along that lines. High fat foods. So if you're craving really high fat foods like a poutine or some cheese or I don't even avocados perhaps, you might be looking to fill some sort of emptiness, because high fat foods will really fill us up and make us feel satiated and full. If you're craving spicy foods, that's a little bit of a drive for excitement. You're really kind of feeling maybe stagnant a little bit, and you want to just get going and do something instead of just sitting. Maybe you're bored. Breads and starches. So a lot of people really crave breads and starches quite a bit, and that usually connects with a calming or comfort that we are looking for. Cookies, cakes, and pies. Again, that emotional connection is pleasure and reassurance. And candy. Actually, candy is a kind of a one that, we've perhaps is not our fault so much, because perhaps as children we were given candies as rewards. So when we crave candies, we are looking for that emotional reward, that emotional connection for entertainment. So different things like that. And you can really start to see the connection when you put it all together and think about perhaps when you were a child, how things connected with certain foods and whatnot, and then why we crave them later on in life. So that's just a little bit about that with regards to our craving of foods. So using food to improve your feelings is what falls under emotional eating territory. For example, turning to a pint of ice cream or a large pizza or some other food indulgence after a rough day. I mean, we can also look towards somebody that may go towards an alcoholic beverage as opposed to food. Same kind of feeling, same kind of underlying issues perhaps going on. Emotional eating is something that we face at some point or another, pretty much all of us do. So it's time to ditch the guilt and figure out what the underlying issues are. So don't be mistaken by treating yourself every once in a while. The difference between treating ourselves once in a while and really eating for emotional pleasure or emotional comfort is a totally different thing. Treating yourself once in a while is a normal behavior. On the other hand, using food to really squash down unhappy feelings and or to fill a void is where the problem lies. And doing so, when we take in those foods that really trying to fill a void, it will give us a temporary sense of relief, but it also brings back more negative emotions than good, because we end up feeling guilty afterwards. We feel shame, we feel anger at ourselves, and a lot of times embarrassment, all these different things that can really have us down spiraling towards even more emotionally eating. So a lot of times people say, to hell with it, I've already kind of messed things up, I might as well just keep going kind of situation. And we just go deeper and deeper. So if this happens to you often, it's time to dig a little deeper to see what's the underlying underneath the surface, to find and really bringing some awareness to that, and then learning what the tools are to help defeat that habit. So we're going to touch on a few ways to create some new patterns without guilt. When you are in that moment, that zone where you're like looking for something, you're going to maybe stop. You're going to try to stay with those feelings, whatever those feelings happen to be in the moment. And no matter how uncomfortable, it is essential for battling emotional eating. So if you're really looking towards um, stopping and putting an end to your emotional eating, you have to deal with the emotions, um, because the food is being used as a way to avoid them. So you want to get past that. You want to really, and it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be hard. But in the end, you will actually break yourself of that habit. It's okay to feel the feelings. It's okay to, really embrace embracing them and diving into them. And if they are so deep that they scare you beyond belief, then it's time to perhaps look from some professional help through a psychologist or a social worker or something along that lines, because it is perhaps something that you can't deal with on your own. So the sooner that you do acknowledge those feelings, the sooner that they'll disappear, because once you start working on them, you're going to perhaps maybe write about them in the journal to release them. You can do the right release kind of ritual where you perhaps put them in a sealed envelope and burn the envelope, just allowing yourself to get them out of here and onto, someplace else. You can talk to a friend or a loved one. You can reserve your tasty treats for chosen special days, not when your emotions are driving you. So that'll make the difference and sort of bring a little bit of disconnect between the food and the emotion as well. You're going to want to savor the moment. So look for moments in your life where there is lightheartedness and happiness. The clouds in the sky, the way the sun feels on your face, a relaxing bubble bath. These are all things to savor. So do it with your food too, and eat mindfully, enjoying that really nice piece of pizza. But, instead of just shoving it in your face and eating it without even kind of thinking, really take each bite in with thoughtfulness and honesty and enjoy the moment. And, and while you're not trying to snuff out feelings or push them down literally with food. So bringing that mindfulness into your eating as well. So don't eat unless you're hungry. And this is when I was coming back to talking about having a glass of water. Sometimes when you're hungry, sometimes when you're hungry, you feel that hunger, it is nothing more than just dehydration, because unfortunately a lot of you don't drink enough water, and I know a lot of you will be the first to admit that. So really, not pop, not liquor or beer or wine, um, not dairy products, maybe a herbal tea, or fresh juice, but not juice from concentrate. Really something along the lines of water. And really give yourself a few minutes, maybe about 10 minutes after drinking it, and and feel if you're still hungry, because this would be the perfect time to reach for something to eat. Um, when you're exercise healthy eating about 80% of the time, and you mindfully and moderately indulge like once in a while, and that's okay, it'll have a less impact. Again, it'll take that stigma about what the food is that you reach for and the feeling that is connected with it, and just allow yourself to have that treat once in a while. Don't have that emotional connection with it. Balance everything out, and do the best that you can. I kind of do this along the same lines as with my own life, because again, like I said, I am an emotional eater, or have been at least. And thinking about it now, it's been a while since I've actually indulged in something that and have been resorted to emotional eating. I'm just thinking, yeah, no, it's been a while for me. So I think perhaps maybe because I've implemented a few of these strategies myself, that the chain may be broken a little bit. So you're also going to want to keep a journal. I know. So many people don't like journals, but this is the way that we're going to learn how and what our triggers are. So um, the triggers are the things that set us off towards emotional eating. When you identify the cause of emotional eating and what makes you head for the fridge or head for the cupboard or head for the store or the fast food place, you can really begin to bring that awareness to your actions, and maybe perhaps stop them in the tracks, or at least bring some awareness to it, make a conscious decision, understand that you are diving into a carton of ice cream because you feel crappy, but at least you're aware of it at that point, and that's the first step towards bringing some changes with your emotional eating. So, unlike an average eater who may turn to comfort food once in a while, a person with eating issues, it all too often has emotional attachment to doing so that causes unwanted stress and anxiety. So, turning to food to ease unwanted feelings and emotions can become a destructive pattern. And this is where we see a lot of clients who are just besides themselves because they just really feel lack of control and lack of power with regards to their eating, and they become very discouraged. And the more discouraged, again, that's that downward spiral. The more discouraged, the more stress, the more anguish, the more guilt, the shame, everything else really kind of plays one on top of the other, and just leaves us feeling hopeless. And there is hope. I tell you that from the bottom of my heart, there is hope. Don't ever feel that you have no hope whatsoever, because that's that can be very destructive. That can be very hard on the system. So if you are a comfort eater, most likely you have specific foods and behaviors around the foods that certain feelings and events in your life trigger. So knowing what food is your comfort food, knowing what your go-to is, you're going to want to maybe write that down in your journal. How do you usually eat that food? When you're feeling sad, lonely, angry, upset? Do you eat it quickly or compulsively, barely chewing it or tasting it? What's there. So bring these kind of questions into your journal and see what it is that you're looking at. When we feed an emotion, often we're present to what we're eating. Often we're not present to what we're eating or how we're eating it. So again, it could be just that you're just grabbing the first thing that you see and eating it, and mindlessly just putting it in your mouth in front of the TV perhaps. There's many different kind of triggers for comfort eaters, so I'm going to go through a couple. And again, it's very individualized with regards to a person, and they can actually overlap a little bit too. So if we really look towards food for comfort on many levels, whenever an emotion comes up that doesn't feel good in our bodies, or that we don't have the tools to be able to handle properly, or we just are so overwhelmed that we just can't be bothered to try, they can overlap. So a lot of these, like I said, I'm going to just go through a few. I'm not going to go through a ton of them. But loneliness is one of the really big triggers for a lot of people. There's often a connection between loneliness and eating habits, and this loneliness may show up as sadness or a feeling of being unwanted, and it can surface from distorted thinking that creates stories in our minds attached to and beliefs. So it's the story that we tell ourselves all the time. It's that negative thought pattern. Sometimes not having enough human support, validation, empathy can create a sense of loneliness, as well as creating a sense of isolation or even illness. So you can literally make yourself sick from that story that you tell yourself. A lack of connection, a lack of intimacy, or a driven loneliness from childhood can also create a desire to fill up that lonely space with food. Ultimately, the heart and the mind need nourishment, not the belly. And that's a pretty powerful statement. The heart and the mind need nourishment, not the belly. Therefore, no amount of food will actually fill that empty space. Doesn't matter how much food you put in you, you're never going to get that nourishment that you need from mind and body. from heart and body. Although most people with eating issues know this fact to be true in their minds, they find themselves turning to food over and over again, often confused about why they keep repeatedly doing the same insane behavior over and over and over again. Because you get so lost in that story, you get so lost in what's going on in your head that you almost forget the main reason behind it. So most people don't realize that they've been driven by loneliness thinking rather than simply being in the mercy of random emotions, over which they have no power. So it's getting caught up in that mind frame again. In other words, if you change the way you think about your loneliness, you can change your reaction to it. So that's a pretty broad statement, and it goes a lot deeper than that too. And there's actually exercises and different things that you can do that I have set up actually in my Eater's Mind program. But that's a general overview of how that works. Another trigger, which is very common for a lot of my clients, is anger. Anger is an emotion that is often suppressed in society, and problematic eaters turn to food to do so. It's uncomfortable emotions. If uncomfortable emotions like loneliness, sadness, and anger aren't dealt with at the root level, a problematic eater will suppress them with food. So sadness, loneliness, anger, all kind of stemming from the same kind of situations, perhaps. And then, of course, if you're not dealing with them, not allowing yourself to feel them, sit in them, acknowledge them, and just suppressing them, it can be definitely quite detrimental to your health. I mean, because not only will the stress of those added emotions really make your body be always at that high level of stress at all times. But when you start taking in foods to get rid of it, you're going to end up with that guilt and that shame and that embarrassment and that anger again, perhaps maybe more anger, confusion, upset, all these other emotions that are going to really kind of cloud the initial reason perhaps behind the loneliness, behind the sadness, behind the anger. So in our culture, anger is regarded as isn't regarded as a positive emotion, and it's often seen as a weakness, especially among women. So sadness, fear, or secondary emotion that may be more difficult to express or experience are often found underneath anger. So let me say that again. In our culture, anger isn't regarded as a positive emotion, and it is often seen as a weakness. So when a woman becomes angry at something, what do? They say, oh, it's just her time of the month. They brush it off as being invalid because it's just her hormones. And they don't really give the validation of the woman's feelings. It doesn't matter if it's hormonal based or not, that emotion is there. And when we see an emotion, a strong emotion like anger coming up, we're told that it's not valid because, and it's not real because, and it's a negative thing because it's just a hormonal imbalance. And, if you can't control your hormones, then you must be weak, that kind of situation. Sadness, fear, or a secondary emotion that may be more difficult to express or experience are often underneath anger. When I learned, because I used to be quite a fiery girl with my red hair and my Scorpio disposition, I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of reasons for a lot of anger, mind you. But when I started doing a lot of research, because anger is very hard on the body. It doesn't hurt the people or the thing or whatever that you're angry at. It hurts you. I could literally feel. I'm very much an empath. I'm very intuitive, and I have been for years and years. And I could literally feel how that anger was eating me up. They use those words eating up, but I could feel it just like gnawing away at me. And those words were very valid. And when I started doing some research and understanding that anger essentially rises up from a feeling of hurt, it made a big, big difference in my life, because then I wasn't so quick to go straight to anger. What I was doing was going straight to the fact of, okay, so why am I hurt? What's going on right now that is making me feel like something's, something's hurting me? And when I really did a lot of that retrospection within myself, I wouldn't go towards the anger, and I wouldn't, always be blaming somebody else, and I wouldn't always be, so quick to jump all the time. And I would be just like, okay, so why is this hurting me? And if it was valid, the reason why I was being hurt, then I would more times than not say it. If not, then I would probably eat it. But it was still that awareness of understanding that it was hurt. It wasn't really anger, because so anger was really the bad manifestation of the hurt, because I was trying to defend myself. I was trying to um, be, protective of me, obviously, like we do. And, you know, because something or someone was trying to hurt me, it was, you're really just trying to dive a little deeper and trying to understand that. Getting comfortable with your anger and in touch with it and what it means, and underneath means, can actually bring some freedom. And for me, it did. It still didn't help with my problematic eating. That didn't come till a lot later. And it takes time. It takes time. When we hold on to anger, it turns to resentment. And for compulsive and emotional eaters, this can be very dangerous. And let me tell you, it can be. Because, the other, especially if you're angry or upset or hurt or whatever by another person, that other person doesn't know. They don't care. Like, you are doing your own damage to your own self. And um, it's just really starting to bring that awareness to it and understanding about it. Um, it is, like I said, turning the anger turning to resentment for compulsive eaters can be dangerous. It's like a bomb waiting to explode. Hot steam has been building up and is bound to explode at some point. And it's important to express that anger and look at why it's coming up. So, an antidote to anger trigger, you really have to feel your anger. Let yourself express it. I don't know if you've ever had an opportunity to do an experiment um, with regards to anger, of taking a padded bat and just beating the hell out of a pillow, like a large pillow, and screaming at the top of your lungs. I haven't really done that specifically. I've seen it done with regards to psychological issues for some of the training that I took. And I've done variations of it on my own. And it is so cleansing. You want to feel that anger. You want to release it. You want to scream at the top of your lungs. You want to push it out into the world and get it out of your body. You have to express it. You have to express what's happening to you. So you're going to want to set some time aside, give yourself an allotted time with your anger. Yell, scream, punch a pillow, throw something safely, of course. Do whatever it is that you need to do to get that anger out. But give yourself an amount of time and just do it within that time. Don't keep it going. Don't hang on to it. And when you're done, you're done. That's it. Say goodbye to it, release it, say thank you for whatever energy it had within you, but don't hang on to it. It is so very therapeutic, but it definitely works towards being able to bring some clarity. So you're not going to be eating that anger. You're not going to be, with every mouthful, pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down, and then smiling to the world. Your anger is valid, um, be it hormonal or not, doesn't matter. And, you can do with it what you will, but to be able to um, really release it and get over it and get past it, understanding the underlying cause, and then releasing it. Um, Food triggers is another big one for a lot of people, especially in cases where people feel that they can't eat certain foods because they will just dive in, like without any control whatsoever. Foods can or can't be eaten safely is kind of, I don't want to say it's the biggest kind of hurdle a lot of people have with triggers, but it's one of the bigger ones because, yeah, we all have some underlying issues with regards to food or emotions or other triggers that might go on. But sometimes we feel like, no, I can't have one little piece of chocolate because I'm going to eat the whole cake. No, I just can't have um, one French fry because I'm going to eat the whole thing of poutine. Most food triggers are sugar, chocolate, salty carbs, white flour products, and greasy foods. But any food can be a trigger for any individual. It can be just about anything. Those are just kind of the big ones. Because, I mean, first of all, sugar, I mean, hell, we're all addicted to it. So it's one of those big things. And then, of course, your white comfort foods, your flour products, they're going to turn to sugar and eventually, but you're getting that comfort. So there's also that trigger with it as well. And most important to note that a food trigger is not about the food, though. Food and food substances aren't things the body creates physical addiction to, such as a drug or alcohol. I'm going to dispute that a little bit and say, yes, sugar is kind of a physical addiction, but at the same time, with awareness and clarity and understanding, that can be very much eradicated. But the mind can create an incredible amount of attachment and pull, as we all know, for anybody that is a very much an emotional eater. For example, if sugar were an addictive substance in and of itself, which it is, everybody would be experiencing chronic addictive behavior from sugar. So sugar is quite addictive, but again, not everybody has that addictive behavior. Alcohol is quite addictive, but not everybody has an addictive behavior. What else is addictive behaviors? I mean, it really is an individual thing. So you just have to really understand, again, are you a type of person that would become addicted to something like that? So many of us take sugar in all the time, even through processed foods, um, um, baked goods, all these different things that we don't realize. And they say, well, I'm not addicted to sugar, but try to remove that from their lives, and I pretty much guarantee you they won't be happy. This is, of course, isn't the case. Also, nobody would ever recover from problematic eating issues if this certainly wasn't the reality. Sugar does affect the body, but it is possible to change your way of thinking about food or food substance, including sugar, and therefore have a completely different relationship with it in return. So where does a food trigger come from? Our perception of food items and how they affect us create the trigger to binge or abuse food in one way or another. So it's our perception of the food. Okay, for example, the perception that eating a certain amount of sugar will lead to a binge, certainly um, a binge is exactly what creates the binge itself. So that's that thought pattern or that perception, knowing that perhaps this is what's happened in the past. Many problematic eaters find this fact is very difficult to believe and often have a large list of foods that are addictive in and of themselves. We kind of call them danger foods or trigger foods. And what and they definitely have to be avoided. So many people say, I can't have them, because you feel it might be too stressful to eat that food because you don't think that you're going to have the control enough to stop. At this point, it is a good idea to start looking at the perception about these foods and the distortions that might be behind them. Okay. So these are, this unfortunately is what's called a core belief. But it is something that you have made yourself. It's your perception of the food itself, because um, literally it gives you whatever the food itself, the trigger, the danger food, it gives you something to the point where you know that you can't stop. But it is only your perception. Um, Sugar is addictive, yes, and it's hard to get away from, yes. So these are kind of borderline foods, anything that kind of has that that gives you that really feel good feeling, because we all want to have that feel good feeling. We all want to be healthy and alive and loved and secure and comforted and everything else that really um, turns us to food. And a lot of times, but the thing is, you have to bring that awareness to the fact that it's not so much the food, it's the feeling, and you can get that feeling from something else. More times than not, is learning about self-esteem, self-love, self-worth, which is another big one, and going from there. So you want to keep healthy in your control. So I've only gone through those 3 triggers, but like I said, um, what were they again? Um, Food, anger, and loneliness are only 3 triggers of a whole pile of them. But these are kind of like the top ones. But we're going to, look at some other things too. Keeping healthy in your control, you're going to stock your fridge with delicious and nutritious foods so that the temptation isn't there. I know, and I know, and I know. I played this game, and this is kind of like the scenario that's going on all the time in my house. The healthy food is there, but that craving or that need or that desire is so strong sometimes that it doesn't matter. You will go out to the grocery store to buy it. Um, I have all the tools that I need to not eat a specific foods or to handle certain foods. But if, again, not dealing with that underlying cause of why you need that food is still always going to be there, then um, you're going to struggle a lot. So, really stopping yourself from, getting out of your pajamas into the middle of the night, putting on your boots, brushing the snow off the car just to go down to the Max to get a chocolate bar. Sometimes I know it's done. People do it. I don't think I've done that specifically myself. I think I might have sent my kid to the store maybe, but it's it it's bad. And to really, get to that point where you're eating like that, you got to come in and see somebody, either through myself or another nutritionist, or even through a problematic eating facility. Somebody that can really give you the tools and the accountability and the help that you need. I mean, it would be fine if we got that warm and fuzzy feeling from carrot sticks and hummus as a satisfying snack, but a lot of times we don't. Um, Sometimes we do, because carrots can be quite crunchy, and if we're just looking for a crunch or something to chew on, sometimes that is what we're dealing with. But you want to really try to bring some awareness to what it is that you're eating. Journal about it, because if it's a problem, what you're doing right now, you got to do something else instead. You got to implement some new strategies. Like I said, I know a lot of people don't like to journal, but it's going to be the beginning of a lot of help for you. Um, if we continue doing the same things over and over again, nothing would change. So if you're looking for some real change with regards to your problematic eating or emotional eating, you have to really do the work. It's not just going to happen overnight. It's not just going to stop by you not having it in the house. It's not going to stop by, avoiding it. You have to deal with the feelings. You have to, acknowledge them, release them, get rid of them somehow, and understand them and sit with them. And then understand that, allow yourself the the good foods in your life, and allow yourself the indulgence 20% of the time. Have a little bit every once in a while, but don't associate it with deep feelings of um, whatever the core beliefs that you have. And I've got a list here, actually, examples of core beliefs. And these are core beliefs that these are the words that people say to themselves, okay? That they believe that they're not worthy enough. Excuse me. I believe that I am powerless. I believe that I'm fat. I believe that I'm ugly. Believe that I'm too big. I believe I am out of control. I believe I am needy. I am not enough, defective, unlovable, undesirable, unattractive. I believe that I am bad. I believe that I'm a failure. I believe that I'm not enough, that I'm too much, that I am deficient, powerless, shameful, guilty, alone, unworthy, too difficult. I believe that I am too different. I believe that I am defective, unwanted, unlovable, abandoned. So these are kind of the negative thought patterns that a lot of us tend to have as core beliefs about ourselves. And when you really sit down and think about it and dive into it and journal about it and put it on a piece of paper, it actually becomes real. And that's why a lot of times people don't want to do the work, because once they do that and they admit to the fact that they have these negative words in their head, it becomes real. But the thing is, when we put it on paper, it's not necessarily real. It is just the thoughts that you have in your head, and you can release them by being aware that those thoughts are there, by understanding the thought patterns that you're going down all the time. And then when those words come into your head again next time, you're going to go, no, I am not powerless. No, I'm not fat. No, I'm not ugly. No, I'm not too big. And you challenge those thoughts and you go beyond it. So it's a pretty heavy subject for today that we're discussing. So if you have any questions, let me know with regards to this. That's a pretty heavy subject. But anyways, next week we were going to be looking at something a little bit lighter. We're going to be looking at holiday snacks and strategies for party eating. So a little bit along the same lines, but some wonderful snack ideas and healthy options for a lot of people. Let you know that my happiness holiday bundle is still available. It's going to be available until the 21st. It is a 3-pack bundle of 20 recipes of loving yourself silly with chocolate. So you can have chocolate morning, noon, and night in a really good way without feeling guilt or shame. There is a holiday survival guide that is packed full of information on how to strategize before, during, and then a bit of a cleanse after your parties. So your holidays you can get right back on the track after your diving into some indulging over the holiday season. And then there's a 7-day skinny black dress challenge that gives you a full week of meal plan and food and recipes and different ways to really make sure that you're not going to be bloated, and you're going to look in, get into your dress and look fabulous. Your skin is going to look great. Your, your energy is going to be up. Your guts are going to be feeling good. Like I said, you're not going to have any bloat or anything else. And it's going to make you look and feel fabulous. I guarantee you that. I'm actually charging for that bundle this year, and it's $50, but half of it, the proceeds are going towards Voices for Women's Sudbury Sexual Assault Center, as a give back to the community this season, something that's very near to dear to my heart. Right now, I'm also offering the New You Simple Weight Loss Program. That is, you can buy this program right now and get all the information you need, and you can start it at any time that you like. But as a group, I'm going to be starting it January 6th in a Facebook group, and we're all going to be, or most of us are going to be doing it all together at that time, to really get some, encouragement and community involvement with regards to that process as well. Let's see, what else have I got? I think that's about it right now. I am off in like minutes to Helleberry for our clean eating workshop that's going to be going on tonight. So hopefully the people in Helleberry and area can join us for that event this evening. I'm going to be doing the same clean eating workshop in Massey. Let's see here, at the Nature Nook next Monday. So next Monday, I'm going to be in Massey doing that. This Thursday, I'm going to be out in Espanola at the Simplicity Natural Foods, and hanging out with Trisha again, and answering all the questions that you guys may need with regards to healthy eating, preparing for the holidays, perhaps, and just all kinds of supplements and different things like that. And I think that's pretty much it that I have for now. So like I said, if you feel that you have any kind of issues, problematic eating issues that go beyond the scope of perhaps a nutritionist or a health coach, please seek out some professional help. It is something that can be, like I said, quite detrimental. And when I'm saying problematic eating, I'm talking more along the lines of a disease process where we're looking at anorexia nervosa, bulimia, all these different things. When I talk about emotional eating, this is kind of more along my lines, my scope anyways, of practice, and definitely something that you could come in and talk to me about, and we can definitely set you up with a program and all kinds of strategies to help you get through the holidays and into the new year with a new fresh perspective with regards to emotional eating. Okay, so lots of love. I will see you next Tuesday for holiday snacks. So take care. Bye-bye.